5, 4, 3,
2, 1.
Put everything down and crank your speakers up.
It's time for
The Realist Podcast.
Oh yeah!
And what is going on, guys? You're listening to the Realist Podcast, and welcome to Keeping It Real on July 13th, 2017. Got ourselves a good bit of content to talk about. Joined us with Andrew Bass, as always. And, man, got a lot to fill in.
Where do you even start, you know? There's just so much to happen, like, that is happening or has happened in, like, the past 2 weeks.
Yeah. I couldn't agree more. With a lot has happened. We'll start with one of the hotter things that a lot of people have been disagreeing with, and that's Enzo and Cass, their breakup. Enzo just can't keep himself out of trouble right now. Enzo has apparently had a very hot mouth and a hot temper as of late, obviously because of the fact that he doesn't want Big Cass and Enzo and Cass to break up, which I agree with him. That it got to a point the other night where Roman Reigns kicked Enzo off the bus. It also could be apparent of why Enzo was basically squashed at the pay-per-view the other night. And the tear, that he was a real tear, and it basically was showing him that he didn't want them to break up. Which is also crazy because he cut the best promo he's ever cut at Battleground, the last pay-per-view.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Great Balls of Fire, he really did. He really did give it his all. And, like, I feel like without all that emotion, you could see why he's so heated about it. But honestly, I'm 100% behind Enzo. I mean, you think about it, what they were doing is stupid. I still don't see where it's going to benefit them both in the future, because let's face it, it's not. You know Enzo's not going anywhere without Cass. And you know Cass isn't going to go that far without Enzo. And a guy can't talk on the mic, so it's for me, it's a no-brainer. It's you took something that was really working and you changed it. And now you have to live with the consequences. Now you get to see if Cass can make it on his own. And you know, that sucks. If I was Enzo, and basically my best shot at staying in the company and staying relevant in the company was just taken away from me, I'm gonna be pissed too. I'm gonna want to act out. I'm gonna be disgruntled. I wouldn't be surprised if they decided to get rid of Enzo Amore in the near future, just to stop all the problems.
Yeah, I've said it from the beginning that I'm not a fan of this breakup. I don't want it to happen, but, you know, at the end of the day, business is business, you know? You can't do that. You can't do it, you know, what has happened. You can't act out because you're upset about what's happening. Because at a real job, you know, and what they do is a real job. But what I mean is if I work at a convenience store and I work in the dairy product, but they move me to meat and I start, you know, basically getting upset and acting out because I don't want to work in the meat, they're going to let me go. They're going to eventually get rid of me. So, again, at the end of the day, it's business. You know, it stinks that that's happened, but you really can't lash out like that and have that happen. And, you know, him, it's a little bit to a certain, a different extent because of obviously, in reality, there's really nothing else for him since, you know, Cass is gone. I never thought that Enzo was a bad wrestler. Again, if anybody doesn't really know of Enzo and Cass, one of my favorite matches to watch is go watch one of the matches they had with the Revival, either the one where Roadblock of 2015, or go watch the no, it was 2016. I'm sorry, 2016 Roadblock. Or go watch the TakeOver in December of 2015 in London. It was NXT TakeOver London. Very good matches, and Enzo looked really well. Even though he was the guy that got beat up before the hot tag, he didn't get as beat up as he would now because the guy would talk trash and then, now he just talk trash and then just get destroyed. Like that was it. There he'd actually have a fight and they actually look like a legitimate tag team.
Yeah, it just goes to show like how much different NXT is from WWE, and that's weird because it's quote unquote the developmental program, but it's gotten to the point where it's kind of evolved past the developmental program and into its own product in a way. So like you see where the quality of matches are higher in NXT, and then when they go to the main roster, it's like they have to dumb down the talent for the younger viewers, which is a shame, to say the least.
Yeah, and it is a shame, but I don't know. I don't see Enzo having that much of a crazy future with this happening. And if he continues to lash out like he is, hopefully everything gets better. That way we don't have to report that Enzo Amore has been released. Hopefully we'd never have to report that. But
just look at what happened to the most recent wrestlers that have acted out, and been unhappy. Austin Aries, Ryback,
Which, Ryback always has something to say if he's ever mentioned. Like, he got mentioned in a table for three for something. It was something really dumb, and he got mad about that. Like, that guy has such bad taste with WWE. It's unreal.
I mean, can you blame him to a certain extent? I mean, the guy had all the tools, they just weren't using them. I mean, and that's what the crime is. Like 90% of the time in WWE, you get a lot of these talented guys and they're just not being used. And, at the same time, it's not WWE's fault to a certain extent because they have so many talents and they've grown to a point where they have so many talents that they're not able to display all of them. And that's a shame. But, you get guys like Ryback that leave the company and they'll go somewhere else and maybe they're going to get appreciated.
Yeah, which as of right now, he's just wrestling the indies.
Yeah.
But more on WWE news. We didn't do a Monday Night Raw review, so let's talk some Monday Night Raw. This week, I really did think that Monday Night Raw destroyed SmackDown. And also, apparently, SmackDown writer has been moved to Raw, from what I read. And if that is true, then that could explain a good bit. But back to, the point, what just made Raw as amazing as it was, in my opinion, was without a doubt the promo between Roman Reigns, Kurt Angle, Brock Lesnar, Paul Heyman, and Samoa Joe. That promo was beautiful.
Yeah, there was just so much emotions going on there, and everybody was playing it just right. And that's what makes a good promo. It's just there's parts where I actually thought that Brock Lesnar was getting pissed off. He really sold it.
Right.
But I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if they're setting up for something bigger. I mean, I've read rumors that they want to try to do a fatal 4-way for SummerSlam, which I'm okay with. I mean, there is the idea that Roman Reigns is supposed to be challenging Brock Lesnar for the championship at SummerSlam, and it was just supposed to be a one-on-one match. But it sounds like creative might be switching directions, and maybe that's what we started to get today.
Well, Brock is really pushing to keep the program with Samoa Joe going.
Well, yeah, I mean, and that's the other thing that I read this week is just Samoa Joe has been getting nothing but compliments from Brock Lesnar. And for those of you out there who don't know anything about Brock Lesnar really isn't a people person.
No, he'll be the first one to admit it.
Yeah, I mean, he just doesn't let to be bothered by people. He likes to just get in, get out, do his job, and that's it. But, from the article that I read, it seems like he has a lot of high praise for Samoa Joe. He really likes working with Samoa Joe. He likes the idea that Samoa Joe is able to take the big bumps where other superstars aren't and give it right back to him. And for a guy like Brock Lesnar who's gone from doing MMA back to WWE, that's a little bit hard on him because he has to try to dumb it down for the guys that aren't prepared for that MMA style. But it seems like Joe is able to take it and kind of give it right back, and that's something that he seems to really respect out of Joe.
Yeah, and I personally would love to see those two continue to work. And just in case you don't know what the rumored fatal four-way match is, it would be between the universe. It would be with the Universal Champion, obviously Brock Lesnar, Samoa Joe, Roman Reigns, and Braun Strowman. So with that being said, and if they are going in a fatal four direction, I'm going to be on record to call it now. Braun Strowman will interfere in the one-on-one matchup, and there would be a no contest winner, which will lead into a fatal four-way. Do I know who the winner would be? Obviously not, but that would be ideally the way to set that up for SummerSlam. Because every single one of them are white hot right now. Put me on record at 9:34 or 9:35 Central Standard Time on July 13th, 2017. Roman Reigns is white hot with the program that he has with Braun Strowman. Braun Strowman is a white hot. Brock is white hot with his program with Samoa Joe, and Samoa Joe is white hot with his outstanding performances against Brock Lesnar right now.
And maybe that, like you said, it has something to do with the SmackDown writer that supposedly went to Raw. Whatever they did or whatever they're doing, they need to keep doing it because they've been kicking ass in the entertainment department. Because I don't think it's been it's definitely been a while since I could say that I enjoyed a Monday Night Raw, and I was just excited to see what happened next. And that's what they did at the pay-per-view. They set it up perfectly. At the end of that pay-per-view, you had so many things that you were looking into, and now we got this big secret going on with Kurt Angle. And I just read an article with that saying that they might try to set up a thing with American Alpha, and I was just like, wow, like there's just so many possibilities of what the secret could be, and how they're going to go about using it. But that's something that I want to tune into for Raw. The idea for this big secret that I have no idea what's going to happen. It's drawing me in, you know?
I've also read on that Dixie Carter could be involved with the secret.
That's surprising. Because
which that wouldn't be a bad idea.
It wouldn't be a bad idea, but how many people actually know who Dixie Carter is?
A lot of the big wrestling fans know who she is. Which, by the way, if anybody hasn't, go watch the WWE 24 on Kurt Angle. Absolutely magnificent. I mean, it's literally every WWE 24 I get really excited for because I think the programming with WWE 24 is outstanding on documentary-wise. So, Dixie Carter is the former president of TNA Wrestling. She was basically in charge of TNA Wrestling. She's the reason why Kurt Angle went to TNA. She signed him. She was the guy that signed, woman that signed him. She's also on WWE 24, and the rumor has it that she might be on Monday Night Raw next week with the Kurt Angle storyline. If that's the case, I could see Triple H coming down and saying, "Dude, what are you doing? You're talking with a competitor?"
Mm-hmm. I can see that. I honestly think that they could bring up something with Stephanie as well. I mean, for those of you who have been fans for like years, like I have, you don't forget the little relationship between Stephanie and Shane and Shane, the relationship between Stephanie and Kurt, and how that culminated with a feud against Triple H in the past. So I mean, they could probably bring something like that back. Like, oh, well, Stephanie was getting upset because Triple H kept standing up for himself and kept losing at big events. He lost to Daniel Bryan. He lost to Roman Reigns. He lost to Seth Rollins. Enough's enough. I wanted a real man. I wanted Kurt Angle back. You know, the Olympic gold medal. You know, they could do anything. But I really think that while the Dixie Carter storyline could be interesting, if they tried incorporating something with Stephanie, it would be so much better because they have that idea of the history to cling back to and how this is something that has occurred before.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I could see where they would go with that angle again and kind of be like, dude, you know, you got to stop this. But I personally don't want to see that happen because it's already been done. I don't like when they go back to a storyline.
Yeah, I mean, like for me personally, I think it's clever if they revisit it. only because of like the magnitude of it. Like I could see where the tensions would be building up. I mean, Triple H isn't going to stay a heel forever, um, especially with how you see him in NXT and how he's really hands on, and people really see like what how he truly is with the fans. So I mean, like almost every time that Triple H has turned face, when it comes to Stephanie McMahon, she's the reason for it. It's always some sort of feud between the two of them. So it's like they have that love-hate relationship going on, and that normally turns into great TV time. So, you know, another feud between them and like the kind of like struggle of power would be very interesting, especially since Kurt Angle's back, and he could possibly be Triple H's first match, which would be smart for somebody who's coming back and kind of needs to get back in a swing of things.
Yeah, I agree. But, you know, let's move on a little bit here. What I mean by move on is has to do with a star that is outside of WWE, but is dating a star in WWE. Yes, we're talking about the lovable and the relationship of Alberto Del Rio, or El Patron, and Paige, which they can't stay out of the media. I said originally on SmackDown's review I would not be reporting this. Well, they heard me, and they decided to go do something crazy. That way I would report it. So,
like, you know what? Blake said, man, he said we weren't crazy enough to report on. You know what? Hold my beer.
Yeah. I mean, well, here is the story, and I'm not going to read the entire thing from Paige, but this is basically it summarized. El Patron, or Alberto Del Rio, we're at an airport bar. Paige has been going through a lot of stuff outside of a lot of family stuff as of right now, and she was, as in her quote, she's been very upset. You know, she's been in one of those places where I think everybody can really, you know, understand where she's coming from, as in, if you have a family member that doesn't look like they're going to be making it, you kind of are in that mindset like, well, it'll just take the smallest thing to set you off. So, what has been said is that apparently an argument came up of something super small, and Del Rio, or El Patron, and Paige started arguing. Paige threw a drink on Del Rio, and she walked off. Del Rio apparently did not put a single hand on her, and when Del Rio waited a little bit, then walked after her, apparently security got involved, and a woman that worked for the airport, which she said should not have happened, but they got to make sure that the airport is safe, so that should happen. That they shouldn't let a couple argue, especially when alcohol is thrown. And apparently, a domestic violence case has been set on Del Rio, or El Patron. In the original media, or the original story says that El Patron, or Del Rio, had alcohol and the smell of alcohol, and apparently he hit her. She said it didn't happen. It's one of those he said, she said, and has been suspended indefinitely by GFW Wrestling, or as known as TNA. So they have suspended him. Now, I will be the first one to say, someone that is in domestic violence is someone that is being beaten. They will usually say, no, I did, it was my fault why this happened. So if it is happening and she is suffering from it, she could be doing that. If not, she could be telling the truth. We don't know. But that is what is going on with them right now. And it is just a story I hate talking about because I don't like talking about them.
Yeah, it's at this point, it's just sort of like, it's one of the situations we really wish we didn't have to report on at this point, because it just keeps piling on. It just seems like they're doing it on purpose at this point, to where they're just like, oh, we need more attention, so let's do this. Let's try this. And I know that's not the case. I'm not saying it is either. It's just, it's like even when they try to stay out of trouble, trouble finds them somehow. And it's a shame. It really is.
Yeah. It is. Like I said, I didn't want to report on this at all. I didn't want to, but someone had to go out and go do some crazy stuff. But
I don't know.
I'm sure
what
more.
What do you think about Paige though? Like, after all this stuff, is WWE gonna even want to touch her with a 10-foot pole?
If I am WWE doesn't like having any bad, drama or news involved with them at all. They don't like having a negative rep with any sort of way. Does it with everything. I mean, Hulk Hogan said a racial slur, the next day he's gone. A WWE coach in God, what's his name? Ass man.
You're not talking about. You're talking about Bill DeMott. He was
No.
the
Billy Gunn.
coach.
Billy Gunn was caught with PEDs, released. Bill DeMott was accused of being a bully, released. So what I'm trying to get at is they don't like any negative rep. With how Paige and Del Rio or El Patron are doing things, it's not a lot of good public media. It's a lot of bad. So, if I am WWE, I honestly would release her. I think she's a great athlete, but with how everything has been going, do you really want that rep going on? Because he's been multiple times has come out and has said very negative things about WWE, which, your wife works for them. Do they really want that? Plus, you do know that if she's in a big match, that he's going to want to be there.
Right.
So basically what I'm trying to get at is I probably would release her.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely would be a smart decision on their behalf when it comes to the exposure that they've been getting. But at the same time, it's like, do you really want to release a talent like that and have her go to TNA or Global GW, whatever they're called now?
I don't see that being a big problem. I mean, they're only getting 300,000 viewers a week.
Yeah, I don't see that improving anytime soon, but you never know. I mean,
I really don't see that.
stranger things have happened.
I mean, that would be like me saying, hey, I'm going to go to TNA Wrestling. What are you going to do about it? They'd laugh at me. I don't think that having Paige on there would be a big threat to WWE. And, speaking of threats, if you haven't seen New Japan Pro Wrestling, what are you doing? If you have, then you understand what I'm about to come from. So TNA, New Japan Pro Wrestling a few weeks ago held their G1 special pay-per-view or weekend in the United States at Long Beach, California. It sold out within minutes. The merchandise sold out within minutes of the doors opening on Saturday.
Wow.
So, the question here is New Japan Pro Wrestling a legitimate threat to WWE if they start touring more in the United States? Because the matches they have and the stories they tell in that ring are outstanding. And apparently next year, they are going to be coming back to the United States in 2018. And the venue will be bigger because they only had it for, I want to say, a few thousand people. And this time they're going to have it for around 10,000, if not more.
I think the important thing you need to take into consideration when it comes to New Japan Wrestling is, like you said, the quality entertainment that they're giving. One of the things that really branched WCW out was the fact that they were able to captivate an audience in a way that WWE was failing to do. And one of the big problems with WWE right now is the lack of storytelling on the main roster. We see it all the time, where you only have one or two matches, maybe in a month period, that actually have a legitimate storyline in the main roster setting. It seems like with New Japan Wrestling, everything they say or do is carefully thought out. And the reason for me saying that is you just look at the storylines and how they're put together. It seems like everything flows properly. The talent that they sign to the company are really breaking their balls out there, to make the product what it is, even at a risk to themselves. I mean, some of the moves that they do there in New Japan Wrestling are so wild and crazy that I get nervous every time I watch them. I really do, because they hit hard. They don't seem to have a filter, and that kind of edginess has been missing for the WWE for some time now. And if New Japan was able to get a more frequent showing within the United States, I think they definitely could rise up against WWE for sure when it comes to the content that they're putting out. And if that would be the case, I could see them start to sign people from WWE over to New Japan and just make a better product, and that's business. That really is business. And if one show has a better product than the other, people are going to gravitate towards it. I feel like one of the big issues with New Japan Wrestling is that most of their following is in Japan. They don't have and I don't want to say that. I'm not going to say they don't have a big following in the United States. I don't think they have as big of a following as they could if they had more exposure within the United States.
I also think you're forgetting that also, I want to say 85% of their wrestlers are Japanese, and their product is Japanese. So I
Right.
think not having that English barrier would hurt too.
Yeah, absolutely. But I mean, if they expand, they're going to be able to do much, much better with it. And I feel like they can kind of overcome that by signing more, English-speaking talents.
Yeah. I don't think it'll ever be as big as WWE. It's sort of like what TNA was. I don't think anything will ever get as big as WWE. And the reason I say that is because I don't think anything will ever get as much money as they do to be a legitimate, WCW type of competitor.
It's funny too, because if you look back in the past, and I know it's the past and things are totally different.
They were facing off
WWE
against
has-
Ted Turner, who had
They were finishing
an open
up, yeah.
checkbook.
Exactly. But the thing about WWE to remember is, back in the day, they weren't the giant that they are now. After they beat Ted Turner in the Monday Night War, there was nobody, and I mean nobody, to stand out in front of Vince. So all the talent went to WWE. Every single wrestling talent went to WWE, with the exception of the minor guys who stayed in the quote-unquote minor leagues, like ROH or TNA at the time when it was first starting out. And that's how you got guys like AJ Styles or Samoa Joe, who weren't getting the attention that WWE could offer because they were taking in all this excess talent from WCW and all these other companies that normally supply them. So, I mean, WWE now is significantly different and much larger of an empire than it was back in the 90s.
Yeah.
So, I mean, yeah, it's really hard to get to that point, but it all depends on the way that they're marketed. If they're able to market on a competitive level and get signed talent to their roster and provide a global attraction, I think that they can pick up steam and possibly rival WWE for sure.
I think I think they could rival, but I don't think they would do anything along the lines of being super threatening. I don't think they really would be that big of a threat, is what I'm trying to get at. I think that if someone was to come out and say, you know what, I'll just go to New Japan, they just like, okay, go. Because New Japan is also not very fond of foreigners being high or top guys. Believe it or not. But, back to what you said about storylines. Look at the storyline between Okada and Omega. And the reason I say that is because these two are about to go in for the third installment or the third match. We're usually at a point by the third match where we're like, God, can we just not have this anymore? We really are. Look at Roman Reigns and Kevin Owens. They wrestled 3 or 4 times, and every single one of them we hated.
Well, it seemed like that feud went on forever, too. That went on for, like, months.
Yeah.
Where it's like Omega and Okada aren't wrestling every 2 weeks, or they're not, like, at each other's throats every other week. It seems like it's spaced out enough to where It's not annoying. It's sort of, and I'm gonna kind of put it on the level of John Cena versus AJ Styles. Like, they didn't overdo it. They didn't have the matches one after another. It was separated by a significant chunk, and that kept it kind of fresh. So that's what they're sort of doing with this. And with Cody Rhodes being there and getting involved with this, this feud, like that. That's crazy because that opens up a whole new list of possibilities. Because I'm sure, somewhere down the road, there's going to be a Omega versus Rhodes main event going on,
Yeah. Which I hope not. It's too. I think it's the Cody's too new to the Bullet Club to already be fighting with them.
I think somewhere down the road we're going to see it. I think that was sort of like a feeler for like, all right, well, what can Cody Rhodes do if this were to happen?
Yeah. Yeah, I see where you're coming from, but I mean, I'm out. I mean, I can't think of anything else topic-wise to really bring up. Is there anything else you want to bring up before we cut it off?
Yeah. Well, there is an incident that did happen in one of the live shows involving Baron Corbin, and I'm kind of curious what your opinion is on it.
With him breaking character?
Oh yeah, and see, that's a big thing that we hear every so often. Certain wrestlers breaking character because they see a kid crying. Apparently, from what I understand from the story, they were Shinsuke Nakamura and Baron Corbin wrestling at a live event. And
No, it was
Shinsuke
it was a SmackDown and it was a dark match.
Was it SmackDown?
Mhm.
Okay. Well, it was some sort of event. And Shinsuke got the win, and this kid starts bawling. And it's strange too because you don't really see too many little kids that are into the heel characters. But it seemed like he was really invested within Baron Corbin, and Baron Corbin kind of went over to him and gave him the shirt off his back and was trying to cheer him up. And from what I understand, he got a lot of crap from it from hardcore wrestling fans that were like, yeah, you don't break character. But I don't know, man. I kind of feel like that's what they're trained to do. I mean, you look at other instances like that where Triple H broke character because he made a kid cry,
Part of me is I'm like 50-50 because I think what he should have done or what he could have done is he could have gotten that kid and just brought him, had something happen where the kid went backstage. That way it went in front of everybody. Because if we remember when Sasha and Bayley were feuding back in NXT, Sasha made Bayley's #1 fan cry. And she sent her, I want to say like flowers or something like along those lines. Sent her something to cheer her up. Sasha did. And I
Right.
remember apparently Triple H was actually upset with Sasha about that. Said, no, you don't do that. You're the heel. You can't just cheer them up. But she felt bad. So I think he could have done something like that to kind of keep it more of along the lines where we don't have this happening. Because I understand where the hardcore wrestling fans are coming from. Hey, you're the top. You're one of the top heels in on that brand. You don't need to be doing that.
Right. I don't know. It's really hard to kind of expect wrestlers to do
But
that.
then again,
other people do it. It's
Yeah.
like Triple H has done it.
But then
you know?
again, if we're doing something, and we're performing in some sort of, in something, and we make a kid cry, we're more than likely gonna go, hey, it's okay. You go to them at one point or another and be like, hey, it's okay, because nobody likes seeing a kid cry.
No.
So, I see both sides of this story. I get why it happened, and I also don't get why it didn't happen. So, what do you think?
I'm not really a big fan of breaking character. I'm really not. But at the same time, I gotta respect the guy for it. I mean, at the end of the day, his job is not to make kids cry. Let's be honest. His job is to make everyone hate him. That's his job. And if it gets to the point where he sees a fan that's upset, I could totally get him wanting to console the fan. You know, especially since he was a fan of Baron Corbin. You know what I mean? It's not like it was, like bringing back to the whole Bailey discussion and how Bailey's #1 fan got upset when Sasha made her cry. That's different. I feel like if it's a different person's fan, it kind of makes sense because that's just being a heel. Getting on the other person's nerves.
Yeah.
But for somebody to see that a fan of theirs breaks down and cries, I could totally see him coming over and be like, "Yo, it's cool. Don't worry about it. Here you go. Here's a shirt."
Yeah.
I don't really see too much of a problem with that personally.
Yeah, I see where you're coming from, but I think with that being said, we're gonna end this episode of Keeping It Real. Good show. More than likely we're gonna be doing it next week unless something crazy comes up, which hopefully it doesn't. So, I think with that being said, for Andrew Bast, I'm Blake Carter. Till next time, peace out.